It's California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. Ben Johnson is joining us today. He is the Vice President of the Alvord Unified School District in the Riverside area, also a candidate for the Community College District in Riverside. Sir, I want to start and speak about the K-12 system. As we've discussed in the past, a lawsuit was brought in Los Angeles County, and it was challenging teacher tenure rules, teacher dismissal rules, teacher layoff rules. It's known as the Vergara decision.
Right.
Since we last spoke, the court finalized its decision. A final order has been issued calling California's educational system as it relates to teachers unconstitutional. That is a powerful statement. What can you tell us about what you know of Vergara and where we go from here?
Well, it's huge. I mean, they refer Vergara, the biggest change we've talked before,
Right.
kind of the same level as Brown versus Board of Education. This
Could be.
big change in education, and my wife's a teacher, so
Oh, really?
obviously, you know, they're concerned, and she had the ability to benefit from tenure. But what I constantly hear from people in the community is, I don't have tenure in my job,
Right.
especially in this short time frame that are the teachers that get tenure now. So
And let's talk about that, because California has one of the most permissive teacher tenure systems in the nation. A teacher can receive tenure after 2 years.
Right.
Now, look, I have kids in school. We honor our teachers. The optics of that is tricky. I mean, that essentially means that, let's say you graduate from college at 22, you get a master's at 23, you have all but lifetime tenure at 25. I mean, I don't know many people who have lifetime tenure after, being
2
25 years old.
I think with any career, and I think most people are looking for a compromise. They're looking for something that says, let that person prove themselves, because the first year in any job, whether it's a teacher, sales, doesn't really
Right.
matter, you're learning the job. And then that second year, you're starting getting the ability to perform. So I think if California doesn't want to have, and CTA as well, doesn't want teacher tenure to go away completely, we've got to find something that says that that person has to prove themselves,
Well, let's
and be evaluated,
Right.
and ensure they're competent, not even competent, but excelling in that role, because it's our children.
And you talk about teacher tenure going away. It could happen through a ballot initiative.
It could.
I mean, we have a very aggressive initiative and referendum system. And I know, during the Schwarzenegger years, there was an initiative to extend tenure from 2 to 5 years. It went down, but those were different times. Mr. Schwarzenegger was not popular at the time. I mean, the optics of this are very challenging. We've spoken about the Miramonte case. I mean,
Right, yeah.
forgive me, everyone, but this was the teacher who served semen on a spoon to his elementary school students. And what happened to him? Well, criminal justice gave him 25 years, but he got a $40,000 payout from LAUSD.
Right. How does a school board do that?
I mean, but you give them, at some level you understand, because it is so hard to terminate a teacher that it was just more economical to pay him out.
I understand that we've all been in situations, I'll just address that one point about paying somebody out, but I think that's a board decision to say there's times where economics aren't the issue. There are times where I think a board has to say, this guy is
Right.
going to jail.
He doesn't need 40,000.
There's no question about his
Right.
guilt, so let's go to court and fight
Now,
something like
to
that.
be fair, there was legislation passed post-Vergara that would have
Right.
addressed the Miramonte case.
But the board should have stood up in that case, in my opinion.
But here's the challenge. With regard to the legislation that allows for quicker dismissals for egregious acts, that legislation, which passed over the summer, says nothing about ineffective teachers. And I have mentioned to you, and I'll ask our viewers, and you actually got the right answer, so I'll quiz you again. How many teachers a year are dismissed in California for ineffective teaching?
Yeah, that answers 2.
You answered that correctly. Not 2 in Alvord.
2 across the whole
The
entire
state, 2.0008%. Again, it's the optics of it that, in a how many teachers are there in the state? 300,000, I
I was going
think?
to say it's over 300,000.
Yeah, you can't tell me that only 2 are ineffective in any profession.
And I think that's where, as I've talked to leaders in our associations, most people don't want bad teaching, especially
Right.
union leadership. They want people that represent their organization well. And I think that's why they've got to, if it were me, I would be saying CTA needs to take the lead in this and help come up with something that's a compromise too.
But let's
We don't want people representing our organization that is not what we think of good teachers, because we all, and I don't get on my little rant here, but we all can think of a teacher that made a significant difference in our lives in a positive way. And that's what we want every child to experience, and not to have these exceptions kind of define the profession of being an educator.
That's what's happening.
I know.
I mean, this Miramonte case that I mentioned, so clearly an outlier, but I can envision the ad. I mean, I can envision it. I can envision the ad that says 2 teachers dismissed every year, 0.0008%. That is powerful, and whether Michael Dukakis should have been tarred with Willie Horton, who knows, but that was the end of his presidential run.
Was.
I mean, and that's the type, little anecdotes can really change public opinion.
It could ruin that, you think of careers that stand out with good quality,
Right.
people think positive things about it. I'm concerned because that negative image, as you said before, is how people are starting to find educators, and that is, what did you say, is 0.0.
Right.
That's just a small percentage of our educators, but the problem is that those that are in leadership need to be the ones taking the lead, saying, we don't want those kind of people in our profession, so let's be aggressive in how we make sure that those are not good teachers are no longer to call themselves educators.
But here's the challenge. God bless our teachers and God bless their organization. But the California Teachers Association has had tremendous success in Sacramento. And I could make an argument on their behalf, which would say, just dig in your heels, this will pass. I don't know if I agree with that argument, but do you think they really will look at this and say, we need to move on this?
I hope so. I sit on the legislative committee for California school boards, and our group has discussions with CTA and the governor's office all the time about these kind of issues.
And
it's challenging to, we both say we're on the side of children, but at times coming to that, where's that common ground, has been more challenging than I would have expected. So I think we need to really make sure that for us as school board members, that CSBA is having higher level communication with CTA about kind of your point of, this is not going to get better. We had a board meeting, meeting with our Riverside County group this couple days ago, and we're hearing enough from our community that people are concerned about this negative perception of a profession that we all respect and think highly of.
And we know the CTA and the CSBA have gone to battle over this question of district reserves.
Yes.
The CTA was very effective over this past legislative cycle, and they were able to get the governor to push a provision which limits the amount of reserve when and if the rainy day fund is implicated. And what that does is it creates more revenue for the district, and therefore more for salaries. I get it. Teachers want to be paid well, but think about 3-4 years ago, there were several districts that were on, what is it called? They were on notice or something because they had dipped below reserves or whatever it is.
Well, exactly. And so as we think about the money issue, the numbers that were used that kind of defined some of these districts that had high reserves were these small, tiny districts that had less than 1,000 students. Most of the larger districts had reserves that were smaller. And so if we're going to talk numbers, we need to be straight forthright about our numbers and not kind of play games with it. Our district needs to have at least, I would say, 3 to 4 months of backup in case something bad happens. We cannot afford to have any district go bankrupt, and so local control to me means local control.
And it is ironic, as we're giving more local control through the local control funding formula, at some level we're taking away control.
Which goes completely against what we wanted to do. So, I think it was SB 585.
I'm not sure of the number, but good enough.
But that needs to be revisited.
Well, they tried. CSBA pushed at the end of the cycle, this legislative session, and they were not successful.
And see, that's a problem, because that's a place where, I'll go back and say, HR 101 is you want to retain and attract top talent. So you do that by making sure you're paying people competitively. So no district out there wants to cheat their educators, but the districts have to have control.
You'll come back?
I will absolutely be back.
He is Ben Johnson, VP of Alvord Unified, also candidate for Riverside Community College District. I'm Brad Pomerance. It's California Edition.